Welcome back to the Sellware Getting Started series. Today we're going to be covering listing templates, what they are, why you need them, and how to create them. Listing templates are often one of the harder concepts to grasp as you get started with your Sellware account, but are one of the more powerful features to allow you to connect your Walmart, eBay, Amazon, and other marketplace channels to update information, product information, price, images, metadata, any of that data that you need to send out and consolidate throughout your marketplaces. Begin with a listing template. So let's get started. So today we're going to be covering what they are, why you need them, and how do you use them. For listing templates, we have a number of different ways you can create listings. We have bulk listings where you can list multiple items at a time. So let's say you had 100 different varieties of shoes or boots or shirts or electronic devices all in a similar category. You can list them all in bulk. We have individual item specific listings. So if you are a price arbitrager or someone picking up wholesale or clearance items in a one-off basis, you can create items in a one-by-one fashion. And we also have some advanced capabilities that we're not going to be covering in this series right now, perhaps in a more advanced course. But for you larger e-tailers out there who are doing hundreds of thousands of listings or have very large catalogs, we have ways that we can create these listing templates automatically to be created directly from either your ERP data, CSV, or flat files, or a combination of the above. We're also going to be covering some basic errors that happen during the listing process, how you track those down and resolve them. And it goes without saying, we can link to existing listings, so you don't need to originate listings through Sellware. If you have other tools that you're using, auto listers or existing listings that are out there, we can seamlessly connect to those to both keep your listing history, but allow you to control your inventory, pricing, or any of those other order flow issues that you may want to consolidate through Sellware. So you do not need to use listing templates. I'll call it a pseudo advanced feature. That's just the easiest way for folks to begin adding new marketplaces to get started. I'm just going to throw up a couple of resources here really quick. Obviously, if you're selling in eBay or Walmart or Amazon, you should have an account set up with seller-based permissions. For Amazon, that's Seller Central. For eBay, you can go to the eBay Seller Tools. And for Walmart, Walmart's Seller Central will have a lot of the documentation if you're new to these channels in terms of what is required to sell, what's prohibited to sell, what might be gated, meaning you need special permission to sell, and the basics in terms of getting started. We usually recommend that if you are new to these channels that you go through the unique marketplace training materials, documentation, and do a few listings within that tool directly so that you can get a hang of the general requirements that they have. So we're going to start off with eBay listing templates. We have a couple of different varieties. So on the right hand side, we're going to be doing a combination of just a PowerPoint review to set the scene, and then we're going to jump into the live tool to go through how you would do this on the fly. So in an eBay listing template, you see that on the right hand side, that consists of images, price, variants, and attributes within the eBay world. So attributes are things like if you're selling in the shoe category, you need to have things like width and size. If you're selling in the t-shirt category, usually it's size and color. If you're in certain electronics categories, they may have mandatory attributes like power source, or voltage. Each one of those is unique. That's why we say you do need to have a base level of familiarity within eBay or the ability to quickly track down some of that information. So in a bulk listing scenario, that's usually used when you're creating listings for a large number of items. Like I said, if you had a few hundred different brands of boots or shoes, but they're all going to go into the eBay boot category, you could use a checkbox select option and send all 100 of those different groups of items to eBay directly to create the listings. Those usually have more detailed listing templates. We're going to get into creating a listing template in a moment. If you're doing individual item listings, meaning you have a one-off, so you have a piece of furniture or a refrigerator that you're going to be reselling that you got from an inventory surplus and you only have one, well, rather than create an eBay listing template for that, you can just list that directly from your item within Sellware. We use a concept called macros. Those macros are delineated with this I guess taxonomy with the bracket and the @ symbol and the name of the macro in between. And we'll cover that in more detail. But where applicable, we will pull automatically the correct field in for you. Since we do support so many e-commerce channels, sometimes the name might not be what you expect, but for the generic and usual suspects, things like SKU, descriptions, UPC, title, price, quantities, images, we have mapped most of those out automatically. So usually you're using macros when you want to do an override of some sort. And again, for companies that do have larger catalogs, hundreds of thousands of items, we do have a variety of ways to do that besides listing templates, in which we can automatically populate those directly from a CSV file or even your ERP system, to the point where you never really even have to touch Sellware for listing templates. That is an advanced capability, something we typically work with our professional services team to get set up, because it does require some setup, some validation to make sure everything is working properly. So what are listing templates? Well, listing templates are tools that we use inside of Sellware to push data into your marketplaces in the most efficient way possible. In the eBay world, we push things like product categories. So using the taxonomy of eBay, we push create a product category, and then if there are required attributes, item data is another term that's used. For some of those categories, that is optional data. For some of them, it is mandatory. And templates are also used for base level things like payment policies, shipping policies, and return policies. In some cases, you can set that up at a global level, but in some instances, they may be different. For example, you have a very heavy item that you're not going to do free shipping on. You need to have a eBay listing template that has calculated shipping or a flat rate for shipping. Payment terms, depending on what you accept, whether it's PayPal or other types of payment gateways, and return policies. You must have at least one listing template within Sellware in order to push to that particular marketplace. That is a frequent error that we see. Folks set up an account, select all their items, and hit send to eBay and wonder why nothing happened. You must have at least one listing template. And we're going to go through the process of creating one of those right now. And like I said, if you are new to selling on a marketplace, you are going to need a base level of familiarity with that marketplace, so that when you're using Sellware, you can use it in the most efficient way possible to save you time. If you're trying to learn the ins and outs of a particular marketplace via Sellware, that will be a challenge. So like I said, we recommend you push a few listings through the manual process just to get familiar with the rules and make sure you have the right things set up for your payment policies, shipping policies, credit card policies, etc. So before we jump in, creating templates is a little bit of art and science. I typically recommend folks set up a few templates based on what they think they may look like, or work with someone from our team to do that. Generate a few listings, push them into the marketplaces, and then take a step back and think about how could you either make that more efficient, how could you make that more generic to use the same listing template for more items, or how can you batch that up to be more granular to fit the types of products that you sell. You may have free shipping for certain categories and paid shipping for others. Usually 6 to 12 is ideal, but that really just depends on the nature of your business. And we will see as we go through this process, debugging and checking out error messages. For your first few times is an iterative process to run down what required information you may be missing, but once you get the hang of it, listing becomes very, very quick. As mentioned, if you were going to be sending items into the shoe or boot category, which we're going to be doing a demo of in just a moment, you're going to want to pass in things like the size of the boot. That is a mandatory item that you need to have included. Width is also mandatory and required, whereas things like manufacturing part number or color may be optional. If you are not using eBay business policies, they are highly recommended. That's a pro tip. Definitely recommend you check that out in the eBay online in your eBay store. Business-policies is where that's located, but that allows you to set your business policies within eBay and reference them directly in Sellware. And if those policies ever change, you only have to change them in one place rather than going to each individual template and listing to make that modification. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump into Sellware. We're going to take a look at a bulk listing template. We're basically going to create a template for boots with $1 shipping, and we're going to grab a handful of a couple hundred items, maybe less than 100 items, made up of different types of boots with different brands. We're going to send those directly to a generic boot template and show you how easy it is to get those listed when you provide the proper information. So let's get started. So by way of recap, at this point, you should have your channels connected. Under your channel settings, you should have your various channels connected from eBay to Amazon to Shopify or a Magento or some other base e-commerce system. This is my demo account, so I have quite a few different channels. You'll probably only have 3 or 4. So you should have those connected. If you haven't done that yet, go back to episode 2 with the channel overview, and that will give you the information you need to get your channels connected. We're going to go over to our product grid, and in your product grid that will be pulling the information from your primary channel. Again, that's a recap. Episode 2 covers the basics on how the data gets pulled into your primary channel, and then for display purposes I turn the images on here. If you are dealing with variants, you'll notice a little triangle symbol here. So if your item has a variance like size and style, as in the case here, by clicking on that triangle button, that will explode to show all of these sub products underneath that particular item. To go into the details of that product, you can click here, and again, this data is coming down from your primary channel. So in this example, I believe this is a Shopify channel that I'm pulling down from, so all of the item that you see here, the information is coming directly down from my Shopify channel because that was set up as my primary channel. So you have things like SKU. This is a setting that we set inside of Sellware for condition. So if it's new with tags, I'm going to set that here, or by default have it set to new. Here's my product title, my description. It is available to be published. Currency, MSRP, regular price, cost, minimum advertised price, weight if you're going to do dimensionality, UPC if you're using that, the manufacturer, part number, number of units in stock, etc. That is all coming down in most cases from my primary channel. If you have images set up, there are a couple of the images that are set up here. For certain platforms like a Magento or a NetSuite or folks using a CSV file, you may have additional custom fields. If you're using something like Shopify, you probably won't have many custom fields. So you'll notice in this instance I have a custom eBay _price, meaning at my primary channel I have set a price of $49.99 that will be used only for eBay. And then if you have some variation information with SKUs, quantities, prices, UPC codes, those can all be captured here. So this is about creating listing templates. So that was just a quick recap. Let's go jump over into my eBay listing templates. As you'll recall, typically 6 to 12 templates is sufficient for most clients, but depending on your business, so some folks do have 20 plus different listing templates for various reasons. So you'll kind of, as you get started using Sellware, come up with that combination of art and science and rules of thumb to determine when to use a generic listing template or when to create a new template. So I'm going to start off with that generic boot template. Again, this was going to be designed for boot categories. So if I did a lot of footwear, in particular a lot of boots, I could create one master template that could be used for all of those different boots to list in bulk. So the basics that you need to get set up with, so country, this is going to be an eBay US site selling in the US. This is going to be a fixed price, good till canceled. We also do support auctions, good till canceled, or a specific duration depending on the item and category that you're using. This is my user ID. You could have multiple user IDs to send products to different stores located in North Carolina. I could set my item condition to new here versus having it set up at the item level. Recall I said that when you connect your primary channel, by default we will map the appropriate information. So there is a title coming down from Shopify for your product or item titles. You may have a subtitle. Descriptions, clearly there's a description coming down from Shopify. So if it is an easy one to map, you don't need to do anything here unless you want to do an override of some sort. By default, we'll pull the quantity coming down from the quantities field. Since this is the boot category, it is 11498. I know that it's 11498, but if I didn't, I could type in boots here, and I could find those particular boots. If they are hiking boots, men's hiking boots in particular, I could select that item there. 181392 would be that category. I'm going to use 11498 because I know that's the appropriate category. By default, we will pull the images in unless you want us to pull in different images. For folks using eBay store categories and have stores set up within their eBay account, these will be populated based on your store categories. I'm going to ignore UPC codes. In certain categories now, UPCs are checked if they are provided. So if you have just generic made-up UPC codes, they are not going to work. So you're going to want to use real UPC codes, or I'm using, in this case, a macro called ignore that just says ignore UPCs. To the extent you can use a valid UPC, absolutely do, because it will help in folks locating and being able to search for your product if they happen to know the UPC code. Price I'm going to leave blank because I'm just going to use the Shopify price. And since I know that this is a boot in the boot category, and I know that these items are coming are attributes that I can specify within eBay, I'm going to go ahead and fill those out. Some of those are mandatory, some of those are going to be optional. Like I said, shoe size is mandatory, and that is set up, as you may have noted before, from that variation tab that I showed you. There is a field called size, and there is a field called width. So that puts in the fact to use a macro and to create a listing in eBay with variations. Brand, I'm going to use a macro just for brand. MPN is a macro, and color is a macro. So these are macros that I'm using to pull from my custom data that we don't have automatically mapped to eBay. That's a quick overview of what goes into a listing template. As we scroll down a little bit more, this is going to be my origination for the shipping. So 27519, I'm going to give it 1 day of handling time. And since I am using eBay business policies, I can just select a flat $1 shipping fee. Same thing with payment. I can take my PayPal method, and return policy, no returns accepted. If you did not have this set up as an eBay policy, then you'll have to go and specify that directly, which becomes a little bit more complicated. So if I was only selecting domestic locations and I wanted to offer free shipping, and my shipping method for this particular template was going to be USPS priority mail, and since it's free, I don't need to put anything there, but each additional item costs $1 and any surcharges. You could skip international, and if you were doing international, you've got all of these different fields to fill out if you are not using the eBay business policy. So again, highly recommended that you just use the eBay policy because it makes things a lot easier for you both to set up in a template and to keep up to date over time. So I'm going to save this template. Okay, so now that this template has been saved, let's go back to our products catalog. Let's say I had 100 different boots, different brands, different manufacturers, different styles, but they were all hiking boots. I could simply go and select all of those boots that fit that criteria. Okay, so this could be an entire page. If you literally had an entire page, and let's just say that you did a search on all of your boots, I could click on that. That would select every boot in my category. In this case, I only have 4, but some of our retailers have hundreds of products that would go into the same category. So we'll just take these 3 different variations of boot, go to Perform on Selected. Again, this is called a bulk listing. Create listing. And then I go select the appropriate template. We call that the generic boots $1 shipping. I hit the confirm button, and now those 3 items with all of their underlying variants, so I've got 4 under here, 4 under here, 3 under here, so a total of 8, 9, 10, 11, math is hard today, 11 different boots under these 3 different product lines are now sent over to eBay. See that they're in process. I click on this green box. That will take me over to all of my listings. And good, looks like we get to do a little bit of debugging here. So when you have an error, I see 3 were sent, 1 was successful, and 2 of them have errors. So I will click on this CSV link. That will download a CSV file. Okay, so as we saw, we have 1 item that listed successfully, 2 that had errors. The error message that it gave me said when specifying SKUs for inventory tracking, the SKU must be unique. So I wanted to actually show you a real error message so that you could see how those get displayed. And what that's basically telling me is, in my haste to copy and paste a couple of items for this demo, I made a rookie mistake and used the same product SKU name. And what that is telling me is that you can't use duplicate SKU names, which we all know, and so it prevented me from getting myself in trouble on eBay. So I'll go back and fix these. I'll hit the pause button, come back and fix those so they're all unique, and then we'll go back and batch these all up. But what you do see here is now this marketplace shows eBay because that item was successfully listed on eBay. When I click on that item, it takes me to both the listing ID that's hyperlinked. I can click on that now to see what it is, and you'll see that I have both size and width for that particular boot, multiple images that got pulled down from my Shopify system, and these values that we specified from our macros for part number, brand, style, and color have all gotten pulled through effectively. So something else to point out here. You're probably wondering why this is $10.89. I didn't show you that, we covered it really quickly. Let's go back over to this particular item. Let's click on this particular SKU. We are at the parent level of the SKU, and for my variations, I set $10.89 as this item specific price. So the parent will also have a price, which is why on some of the screens it was $108.98, but I overrode the price at the variant level and made them all $10.89. In one of the other listings we'll do in a few moments, I'll show you how you actually can mark that item up a little bit by adding $10 to each listing. But for now, I'm going to go clean up those SKUs, and actually before I do that, let me cancel that listing just to make sure nobody goes and buys it for $10.89. And we're going to go cancel listings. So that listing has now been canceled and is being removed from eBay. I will show you that, and I'll hit my refresh screen, and you will now see that is ended. So that's how quickly I can take a listing and put it up and take a listing down. Note, if you are not familiar with eBay, you do get, depending on the type of your accounts, a certain number of free listings, and after you exceed that, you will begin to get charged on listings. So make sure you don't do anything silly like push 1,000 units of inventory at $500 as a test listing out to your channels. You probably want to throttle that down both for testing purposes and to make sure that you're not oversaturating either your limit on prices or limit on number of units. So within Sellware, what I've done on this particular account for my eBay account is I have actually set this up so that I will never list more than 2 units. So even though I may have had 500 of these in stock, I'm never going to push more than 2. So in that case with a variant, if I had 50 of each size and width, I'm only going to push 2. The moment that item gets sold, I'm going to replenish the 2, the unit that went down to 1 because the order was placed, and we'll replenish that right back to 2. So it's both a good way to make your item look a little more scarce, as well as keep you from exceeding any limits you may have in terms of dollars or number of units. So I'm going to go clean that listing up, and I will be right back. Okay, so I went and cleaned those items up to give them unique SKUs for each of their sub-items. So notice here, when I click on that, I see both the parent and the children. The reason why there are no images here is since these are all the same with the exception of size, I don't really need images for each of the children. In certain instances, you might want to have unique images for each one of the children, particularly if you're dealing with something like color. So now to continue and go back to that listing process in bulk, let's say I wanted to search on all my boots. that is singular boot. Turn the images back on, and if I wanted to send these in bulk to my boot template, perform on selected, create the listing, go to my account and select generic boots, $1 shipping. And over to my listings. They are in process, and as we see, they are now successful. So I will go back over here and I can see both of those listings and their hyperlinks. So there is my waterproof insulated trail boot and my other boot. So there we go. So that's how quickly in bulk I could send those by using a bulk listing template. You can also see those listings here. If I only wanted to look at my listings that are currently on eBay, I can filter here and I can see all of those listings that are listed on eBay. Quantity says 2 here because remember I capped the number of units. So although I think I had 4 or 6 of those for each item, I'm capping it to no more than 2. So we're getting a little navigation overview going on here as well as listing. So I also created a different listing template. In that instance I used the price that was coming directly down from Shopify, but as you saw on this particular boot here, I also have a custom field called eBay price, so $49.99. So if I wanted to mark that up for $49.99 on eBay, I've created a listing template over here and I called it generic boots eBay price. And the reason I called it eBay price was just to make it easier for me to remember that I wanted to use the eBay price. So it looks exactly like that previous template with the exception of instead of leaving price blank, I put in that field eBay underscore price. So that uses a macro to pull from a custom field that was coming down from my Shopify system called eBay price. So now when I list that particular shoe or boot, which I called eBay price here, and select that, perform unselected, create a listing, generic boots eBay price, $1 shipping. So quick overview here. With eBay, the feedback is almost usually within 15 minutes you'll get a response back from eBay. Depending on the process and how your account's set up, there may be a 5 or 10 minute lag before those listings get sent and processed and returned. When we're talking about Amazon, that does take a bit longer because we're pushing to Amazon. It has some throttling limits. I think that's every 15 or 30 minutes as frequent as you can send the batches in. And then it does take a little bit of time to get everything returned back to your Sellware account. So what I recommend for folks when they first get started is to open up their Seller Central account, and you'll be able to watch them go into your Seller Central account much faster than waiting for them to return here in Sellware. So let's take a look at that item. That was successful as well. And remember, we marked that up to the eBay price, which was $49.99. So if I click on this item, I should see $49.99 as my selling price. So there we go. So that's how you use the bulk listing process in Sellware. So by way of a quick recap, we created that generic boots $1 ship template. We selected the items that we wanted to send to that template. We click create listing, select your template, submit, and then within a few moments those items will show up or you will get your error messages. In this case we sent through a variation for size and width. We also pulled in brand, part number, color, and style was hiking, and we used the default business policy settings for payment, return, and shipping that were coming directly out of your eBay business policies. So that covers the bulk listing process that we talked about here. Again, if you have lots of products that are in similar categories, that's a great tool to use. You'll just have different listings depending on what type of products that you sell. So now we're going to jump into an individual item listing. So this may be one that for whatever reason you don't want to set up a bulk policy for, or it could be that you're selling one-offs, or it could just be that this isn't a very popular category for what you sell. So rather than creating a template, you just want to do this quickly on the fly. So we'll go back over here into my boots. I have a boot here called the Rocky Men's Broadhead Trail Boot. Again, it's still a variant. I have more items there. I'm going to go into the parent level. If I wanted to get into the children details, I would go here, but I'm going to do this at the parent level. And what you'll see that I have done is you have a tab here that didn't exist before. So here's my general information, my images, any custom fields that I may have, my variation information, and then I have a tab. I created this ahead of time, but I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. If you wanted to do this an item specific listing, simply click on the plus tab, send it to whatever channels you have connected over here. So in this case I just have Shopify, eBay. I don't have an active Amazon currently or Walmart connected, but if I did, same process. We will select the eBay template. So what I would do is create a channel here. I've already created this one, so I won't actually click on it, but what would happen there is it would allow me to specify the template, titles, descriptions, and attributes. So I'm going to take you into the one I've already set up here. I've assigned a template called base $1 shipping. So it's an empty template with the exception of, actually it's a completely empty template that is set up for my eBay account and my business policies for shipping, payment, and returns. Everything else is getting pulled directly from here. So as I scroll down, I'm putting it back into 11498. So 11498 we know is that hiking boots category. These attributes come up. They are blank, but you can fill them in to the extent that you have the information. Again, if you know it, put it in. It just helps with your search results and giving your potential customers more information. So it's a hiking trail is the category here. I'm using the variation in size, variation in width, and in this case I'm not referencing the macro for color. I'm just going to type in the word camo so that you can see the difference. As you scroll down, there are other features. If you know them, put them in. Material, European sizes, patterns, fasteners, country of manufacture. All of these are optional. If they're mandatory, if you don't provide them, the listing will fail. You'll get an error and it'll tell you specifically what you need to provide. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to override that price and I'm going to mark this item up $10. So I simply put in plus 10. So it's going to take my $10.98, which was my base price, and mark it up $10. I could also do plus 25% or minus 5%, whatever that may be. But in this case, I'm just going to go plus 10%. There are other fields here that you can use once you become more familiar with eBay. So things like buy it now prices, if you were doing auctions, you could have floor prices, minimum prices, map pricing, shipping overrides. These are all more advanced features that you'll need to learn a bit more about inside of eBay, and then these fields will make sense to you. So on this particular item, I put this template, assigned it here, and now I can do a save and publish product. That will take all the information here, batch it up, send it off to eBay. Now we do batch these up in case you're doing a lot at a time, so this typically takes 15 minutes before the batch will get sent off. So I'll pause, trigger it, and then we'll come back and review it. Okay, so that has completed. There is my one record that I just sent. We'll go back over into the products. There is the boot that we just sent through. Here is the listing link, and I will hyperlink over to it. And here it is for $11.98. Oh, I must have said plus $1 instead of plus $10. So instead of $10.98, it's $11.98. Notice here it says camo versus the real tree description that came from the macro we used previously by color. Okay, so that's how you can use an item-specific listing in order to create a listing as a one-off, or if you just want to fly through and take, for example, if you wanted to go through all of your items and pick the ones that were the most expensive price-wise that you wanted to list. So I'll select on this filter field here. So $154, I see that's not sold anywhere. $35 not sold anywhere. So I could just click each one of these and go and create them as a listing. So let's go back and do that again. Sort on price, highest to lowest, and for example here are some other items that I could list here. Click on the details page. No, actually we'll stop here. Let me back up, and before we do anything else, let me show you that template so that you can see what a generic or empty listing template looks like. So I called that one that was called base $1 shipping. So the terminology I use there is base, meaning it's going to be used as a generic template for a lot of different items. So I simply put in what sites it's going to. All of this is blank, quantities blank, categories blank, price is blank, because I remember I'm pulling all of that from the item details. So everything here is blank with the exception of my zip code and my shipping, payment, and return policies. And you can see the template that I use that on. Go back over here to my listing screen. Only going to look for items that are on eBay, and that shows me that it was the base $1 shipping. Okay, so that's how you create a listing at an item specific level. Let's do one more real quick. I have a Playmobil here that's linked. I see that's linked to my Shopify account. That just shows me that I also have that for sale on my Shopify account. I'm going to drill down into here. I'm going to do another channel, item specific. I'm going to use my base $1 shipping. And I know that this is a Playmobil toy. So what I'm going to do here is it's called Playmobil. So that code is 19854. As soon as I pull that in, it asks me for other things like brand. Let's copy this so I can paste it down here. So brand is Playmobil. Actually, it's, let's see, brand, that's going to be the particular toy, NHL. And we'll go NHL. Again, to the extent that you know this, you can put it in. Most of this, in most cases, is going to be optional information. Item condition, since this is a toy, I believe we're just going to say that it's going to be new, or I can set that in my template. I can't remember if I did that in my template or not. I'm pretty sure that I did. So we're just going to save and publish. So if I wanted to mark this price up, or actually before we do that, this is where you could add an override for descriptions going to eBay. Okay, and save and publish. So that item has posted successfully. Let's go jump over there and take a look at it. So there's my Playmobil. It's my link to my Shopify store and my link to eBay. And as you'll note here, here's my really bad typing. This is where you could do the override for descriptions going to eBay. Okay, so that's how you could send that to eBay. Notice that it's character family NHL, brand Playmobil, UPC doesn't apply. So we've gone through a couple of different scenarios. That should give you the basics to get started on creating your own listing templates. There are resources on our knowledge base, sellware.com/learn, that go into more detail on this. So we do have things like listing templates. So different knowledge bank articles on listing templates and how to use them. So there is a variety of information you can use to get started in addition to this video on your listings. And finally, before we leave here, I will go and cancel all of these listings so that no one goes out and picks up a bargain while we're talking here. So we'll select all of those, perform unselected, cancel listings, and they are now gone. So to wrap up here, we've gone through the bulk listing process. We've gone through individual listings. We've used macros and we've gone through how Sellware tries to intelligently pull the correct information to create your listing to make your life easier. At this point, I'm going to conclude this listing episode. I've gone a lot longer than I intended to. Part of this has been pulled from a previous webinar series. That's why you've seen a couple of different screen formats that we put together to cover the basics on information. But I'm going to create a different video for Amazon specifically, just so that you guys can reference the appropriate one depending on what type of products you're listing and where you are listing them. So thanks for joining us. Look forward to seeing you all again on the next Getting Started series. Like I said, we'll be covering Amazon next. That'll be installment 4. Thanks for joining us.